welcome everyone. We have our guest expert here today. He's going to be talking about hearts. His name is Dr. Paul Arnold, and he's a emergency doctor in a hospital in Toronto. So Woodstock's already had a chance to talk with him. We have Ancaster as well. You can give a wave. Hi everyone.
Hello,
And
Ancaster.
in London as well. Hello.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming on the last Friday afternoon of the summer to spend some time with me. I can't believe you guys are doing this instead of outside swimming or something. But that's cool. We'll have some fun for a few minutes and then you can go swimming. All right, so my name is Paul Arnold. I'm a doctor in Toronto and I work in the emergency department of a big hospital. And at that hospital, I have two jobs. One of them is looking after sick people, and the other one is teaching other people, students and medical students, how to look after sick people. So I'd like to show you the hospital, but I can't because it's full of people who are sick or who are not feeling well, and they're supposed to have their privacy protected. So the hospital did not give me permission to give you a little tour of the place where I work. So I can talk to you a little bit about how I work, though, and tell you a little bit about it. And I can also, I'm in my office right now. This is not the hospital. But I can also tell you I've got an assistant here to help me. It's Dr. Doolittle. Oh, he's hiding. Dooley, come here, bud. Doolittle, come back here. Here. Dr. Doolittle is my personal pet, and he's also a therapy dog. I take him to the hospital to meet patients who aren't feeling happy, and he makes them feel happier. Come here, boy. Let's get you on the camera. You can help me with my talk. All right? So, anyway, let's talk about the things that I do when I'm not playing with my dog. So when I'm at the hospital, a lot of the time, people come into the hospital who aren't feeling well, and what's happening is a problem with their heart or their blood pressure. And that's something we call the cardiovascular system. Cardio stands for heart, vascular stands for arteries and veins. And when that happens, when a patient comes in who's not feeling well, I have to check out that system and find out why they're not feeling well. And the best way to do that, the fastest way, the first thing that I do is to take their pulse. I'm going to put Dr. Doolittle down now. He's getting restless. So, does anybody know how to take the pulse? Okay, Woodstock. I think somebody's got a hand up there. Tell me, how do you take someone's pulse?
You feel, you put this wristband around their arm and squeeze a pump a lot of times, and it takes your blood pressure.
It takes your blood pressure, that's right. But to measure the pulse, you don't have to do anything that complicated. There's a simpler way to check the pulse. Does anybody know that way? Okay, somebody say something. I can't tell you who I can't point to a person there because you won't know who I'm pointing at. You're going to have to pick someone to answer. All right.
You can feel on the side of their neck where a big vein is to feel like a throbbing. That's their pulse.
Two of them.
Okay. That's pretty good. You can put your finger there, but that's actually not a vein. That's the artery that you're feeling. When you put your finger there, you can feel the artery. Is there anywhere else you can feel it? That's right. I see people holding their wrist. You can feel it on your wrist. Below your thumb. There's a place where you can feel it. You can put your hand on your chest and you can feel your heart beating, but that's not the same as your pulse. But you can find a pulse all sorts of places. You can find a pulse in your foot. So the easiest place to check the pulse is in the wrist. Now, when somebody comes in and I check their pulse, if it's good and strong and the heart's beating not too fast and not too slow, I know that some things are working well. I know the heart's working well. I know blood is flowing through the artery down to the wrist, and I can feel it tapping there, so they must have some blood pressure too. And that means maybe that's not the reason why they're not feeling well. Maybe those things are working okay. Now, sometimes I watch television shows. Does anybody here like to watch TV? I like to watch TV. Do you like to watch doctor shows on TV? Do you like to watch cop shows on TV? Who likes cop shows? I like cop shows too. But there's one thing about cop shows that really drives me crazy. When I want to check somebody's pulse, I usually check it over here. And I have to hold on there for about 10 or 15 seconds to count how fast it's beating to tell me how fast the heart's beating. Right? That's how I check that. But on TV shows, cops do this thing all the time. I'm going to get Dr. Doolittle to help me with this and show you what I mean. All right? Here we are. So, Dr. Doolittle, come on, up. All right. So just imagine I'm a cop and I go into a room and Dr. Doolittle's a bad guy. And I go, Doolittle, bang, bang. All right. And I shoot Dr. Doolittle. All right. And he's on the ground and the cop wants to know if he's dead. What does the cop do? He puts his finger on somebody's neck. He counts like maybe 2 seconds. And he goes, oh, he's dead. He's gone. You can't do that. I'm an expert and I can't tell in just 2 seconds how long, whether somebody's alive or not. So you got to put your finger there for a lot longer than just 2 seconds. And cop shows, when they do that, that really bugs me. But I know why they're doing it. They're in a hurry to get on to the next scene on the TV show, something more exciting, and off they go. But that's just me. That bugs me. But it doesn't have to bug you. And it doesn't bug Dr. Doolittle. He's eating all the crackers I gave him now. All right. So what else do I want to tell you about blood pressure system? When I'm trying to remember what's wrong with a patient, when a patient comes in and they say, I don't feel well, doctor, and I'm not sure what's wrong with me, can you help me? When I try to figure out if it's something to do with their heart or not, I try to remember a simple system. It's called the cardiovascular system. In that, I think about 3 things. There's a pump, which is the heart. There's the pipes, which are the arteries and veins. And there's the fluid that runs through those pipes. And then in people, that fluid's called blood. All right? So if somebody comes in and they haven't got a good pulse, it might be because their heart's not beating well. It might be because there's a problem with the arteries, or it might be they don't have enough blood. Maybe somebody shot them and they're bleeding, or maybe they are having some other health problem. And so I try to keep that simple rule in my head. Is it the heart, is it the arteries, or is it the blood? The pump, the pipe, or the fluid? And that's how I try to keep track of what's going on. I know this sounds kind of boring, but when it's in a crisis in a hospital and someone's sick and everybody's nervous about it, it helps to remember these simple things to help keep you focused on what you've got to figure out next. And you have to figure it out pretty quick in the emergency department, because sometimes the patients are sick and they can't wait long. Anyway, so that's a little bit about how I work, and it's a little bit about how Dr. Doolittle works. Good boy, Dr. Doolittle. And now, if you guys have any questions, or if you'd like to chat about things, I'm at your disposal. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Arnold. Let's start in Ancaster, perhaps. Is there a camper in Ancaster with a question?
All right, so let me ask you a question, campers in Ancaster. Do you know how to listen to the heartbeat?
Say yes.
Anybody? Yeah, how do you do that?
You know how to listen to your heartbeat, right? You put your music stuff.
Oh, looks like London has dropped out. Oh well, maybe they had to go swimming.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully
Maybe they'll come
back.
back.
A second. You want to ask a question? Okay, ask a question. How does it hurt? Ask it. Ask it.
How does a heart bump?
How does it pump? A heart is, the simplest way I can put it is like this. Just imagine you've got a balloon inside your hands, all right? And it's full of water. And you want to play a trick on your... You could squeeze the balloon and the water would squirt out and splash all over them, right? So a heart is just like that balloon. A heart is like a bag full of blood with muscle around the outside that squeezes the balloon and forces the blood out. And it forces it to go into the arteries and down the arteries all the way to your arms and legs and up into your head. And that blood is what keeps you alive and keeps you awake. Does that answer your question? Any more questions?
I see her nodding there. Yes, let's go to Woodstock for the next question.
Is the heart always cold?
No, the heart's usually quite warm, just like you. When you wake up in the morning inside your bed, under the blankets, you probably feel pretty warm, right? So your heart is inside your body, wrapped up in your ribs and your muscles and your skin and your clothes, and all those things help to keep it nice and warm all the time.
All right, let's go to London next.
Oh, the room is spinning around in London. Somebody's about to faint.
Approximately how many red blood cells are there in the human body?
Ooh, that's a toughie. I don't think I can really answer that question except to tell you that inside a little drop of blood the size of the tip of my thumb, all right, there's millions. Maybe about 5 million or 10 million. So inside my whole body, there's maybe 5 liters of blood. Does anybody here drink orange juice? Do you get those cartons of orange juice that have 2.5 liters in them? Just imagine 2 cartons like that, right? 4 or 5 liters of blood in a person the size of your mom or dad, right? In a person your size, that might be just 1 carton, so 2 liters. In there, each liter would have billions of red blood cells.
Wow, cool. Let's go back to Ancaster for the next question. I see a camper coming up.
How does
your heart know what to do?
How does it know what to do? The heart has 2 ways of knowing what to do. Part of it is because the heart has a built-in timer control that tells it to pump. All right. If you, I don't recommend you do this necessarily, but if you ever watch those movies where someone's heart gets taken out of their body because they're having surgery, or if it's a war movie and their heart gets blown out of their body, it keeps beating all by itself for up to a couple of minutes because the heart has its own internal timer that tells it when to squeeze. In addition to that, however, your brain sends messages to the heart through nerves that go down into the chest and tell the heart when to beat faster, when to beat slower. So at nighttime when you're sleeping, the brain sends messages to the heart saying, hey, you can relax and beat slower now because I'm asleep. Or if you see that there's a big dog on the street that's barking at you and you're afraid and you want to run away from it, the brain sends a message saying, please beat faster, I've got to run really fast and I need you to work hard. So the brain can control it, the heart can control itself, and the heart also takes control messages from the brain.
Oh, good question, thanks.
Yeah, that's a question.
Now.
What would happen if your heart got too hot or too cold?
Well, that's a really good question because we live in Canada, and in the wintertime it gets very cold, and sometimes in the summer it gets quite hot. And I often see patients who come in because they got too cold or too hot. Every winter, the police sometimes bring me people who fell asleep in a parking lot in the middle of the night, and by the time the morning comes, they're kind of frozen. And they're so cold that their heart and everything else in their body has slowed down to the point that sometimes it's not even beating at all. And it won't start beating again until we warm them up. And sometimes they're too cold and we can't warm them up and the heart doesn't start. But if it's too hot, the heart beats faster because when the heart pushes blood into our skin, it helps to cool the blood off because heat goes through our skin out into the air from us. So if it gets hot, the heart will beat faster and faster and you'll sweat more and more. And hopefully that'll help keep you cool.
Thanks, that's another good question. Thank you. Let's go to London now. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I was wondering, how long is a heart's warranty? Like, how long can it last? Like, what's the max?
Well, hearts don't come with a warranty, unfortunately. That's a great question, though. They don't come with a warranty because they're not manufactured. Each of us was born with a heart that was sort of put together from scratch inside our mother's bodies before we were born. And sometimes the heart comes not built as well as it should, and it doesn't last very long at all. But for most people, the heart, if it's looked after well, if you stay active and busy and you stay fit and you don't eat too much of the wrong kind of foods and you don't smoke, your heart can stay active until you're more than 100 years old.
Cool. Good question, too.
So you got another 90 years to go, kid.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to Ancaster again. Is there someone else there with a question for Dr. Arnold? I see someone coming up to the mic.
What happens if your heart stops beating?
Well, if your heart stops beating, then no blood is going into the other parts of your body. And most importantly, no blood is going up to your brain. So blood going into the brain is the thing that keeps us awake. So if your heart stopped this very moment, you would pass out immediately and you'd be unconscious. It would happen so fast you wouldn't even know it happened. And until your heart started beating again, you wouldn't wake up again. So that's a little different from when we're sleeping. When we're sleeping, our heart beats just fine, thank you very much. But the rest of our brain is switching itself off because it's time to sleep. But when your heart stops beating, you pass out, and it's not at all like sleeping. It's more like dying, unfortunately. So hopefully, if your heart stops beating, it'll start beating again right away, or there's someone there to help it start beating. Otherwise, you're a goner.
Oh, yeah. Let's go back to Woodstock.
Does a heart have water in it?
Does it have water in it? You mean like is there a bag of water inside somewhere? No, but all the muscles and tissues in your body, including your heart, this is a really good question, by the way, have a lot of water in them. If you look at your hand right now, you probably can't see it, but there's lots and lots of water in your fingers. But the water is not all in one place like a big bowl or a big swimming pool. There's little drops of water inside each cell, and there's millions and millions of cells in your hand. And because the water's all spread out like that, you don't look like a jellyfish or like a swimming pool. You look like a little boy or a little girl.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to London. Hi.
Hi, I was wondering, why does the heart have 4 chambers?
Well, that's a really excellent question. The heart has 2 jobs, right? Its main job is to bring blood to the body, but there's a reason it brings blood to the body. That blood has to have oxygen in it. That's what the body wants the heart to deliver. So to do that, the heart has 1 chamber to collect blood back from the body, 1 chamber to pump that blood into the lungs, where oxygen gets added to it. The 3rd chamber collects blood from the lungs, and the 4th chamber pumps it out to the body. So it's blood goes from the body into the heart, and then into the lungs, and then back to the heart, and then out to the body, and then back to the heart, into the lungs, out of the lungs, back to the heart, and then out to the body. So it's a bit like playing hopscotch on 4 squares. You go hop, 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 all over and over. The blood goes around and around and around 60 or 70 times a minute, 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours a day, every day. Your heart will beat millions and millions of times, and all those blood cells will keep going around and around in exactly that way. And those 4 chambers are what allows the heart to guide the blood to where it has to go with each beat.
Oh. Thanks for that question. We have time for a few more questions. Was there someone else in Ancaster with a question for Dr. Arnold?
Why does blood have to go everywhere in your body?
Well, did you eat lunch today? Did you eat lunch today? I ate lunch today. So, why did you eat lunch? You were hungry, right? You probably wanted to eat something, and if you didn't eat something, you probably would be too tired to do anything, like play in the yard, or sit down and have this conversation with us, or watch TV later on even. So the cells in your body, the tissues in your body, get hungry too. They need stuff to keep going, and the heart brings that stuff to them. If the heart wasn't doing that, your body would just say, hey, I'm too tired and lazy to do anything today, and it wouldn't do anything. It would just stop working altogether. That's why the heart has to pump blood.
Okay, let's go to Woodstock for our last question today.
When was the heart discovered?
That's a good question. Wow. So, the heart was always there, right? It was always there in our bodies, but people didn't always realize how the body worked. So people found out how the heart worked about 700 years ago. There was a guy who, at least as far as we know, he was the first guy to write about it anyway. He lived in England, and he basically got permission to cut people's bodies open after they died, and in some cases while they were still alive, while they were sick, to try and figure out how the different parts worked. And he was the guy who figured out that your heart pumped blood throughout the body, and then he tried to figure out why. Because in those days, they didn't understand about things like oxygen and why blood was red or blue. But he was trying to learn all those things, and he was the first guy to do that 700 years ago.
Wow, very cool. Good question, too. Thanks.
I wonder what you guys are going to discover when you grow up.
Yeah. There's still lots to discover, I'm sure.
Lots and lots.
Yep. So that's all the time we have for our call. It's already 2:50. I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Arnold, for joining us today and talking about hearts, and also thank Dr. Doolittle for being your assistant. It was nice to
I
meet
would
you.
thank Dr. Doolittle, but I'd have to wake him up. He's gone to sleep. But I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your afternoon to join me. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had some fun and learned something too. And I hope you have a super swell Labor Day weekend.
Okay, so thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.